Welcome to Marketing Blabs. This podcast is brought to you by Marketing Labs, an expert digital marketing agency based in Nottinghamshire. If you're a business owner or marketing professional looking for straightforward, non-salesy tips and advice to help grow your business online, then this podcast is for you. Strap in because we're about to reveal the things that other agencies would rather you didn't know. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing Blabs podcast. I'm your host, Tom Haslam, and today we're talking about a crucial aspect of content marketing, repurposing. Did you know that 60% of marketers reuse content 2 to 5 times? Repurposing your content can help you save time, increase engagement, and reach new audiences. In this episode, we'll explore the art of content repurposing and how you can breathe new life into your existing content. Joining me on today's Blab, I've first of all got Melissa Healy with me. How you doing, Mel?
Hi, Tom.
I love introducing you onto the pods. Hi, Tom. At least I got eye contact last time. You went, hi, Tom.
It's really awkward.
Yeah.
Saying hello to somebody that you've been sat with for most of the day.
But people might not think that. You might have just come in and...
Just for the pod.
Yeah. Anyway, hello.
Hello. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And we also have our content marketing executive, Emma Nunns.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, actually.
I know.
Ready for the weekend.
Ooh.
You've been working with me all day as well.
I have.
Hello. We've also got Matt Janaway.
Hi, Tom.
This is going to be fun editing for Shazza, but hello everybody, I'm waving. Everybody wave. Shall we get started anyway?
Yep.
On the pod.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to... That was really aggressive. Let's do it. Right. We want to start with some benefits then, because obviously we all know to some degree, I'm assuming that people know what repurposing content is. Why would people consider repurposing their content? What are the benefits of that?
My benefit is efficiency. Produce one piece of content, use it multiple times, multiple channels. Do you want an example, or should we come on to those after?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Blog post, you could probably turn into 20 social media posts.
20.
Yeah, well, depends how many posts you can make out of it. But yeah, 100, 10.
And that's a challenge. Do you reckon you could make 100 social posts from one blog?
Depends whose blog, doesn't it?
Yeah. Your last one, like 15,000 words.
Do you reckon you could do it?
What, turn one of your blog posts into an infinite number of
Yep.
social media posts? I reckon I could squeeze a couple of hundred out of it.
Nick's you could.
I mean,
And probably mine as well, to be
Nick's-
fair.
Yeah, Nick's are
Ramble
another
on.
level there. Only
Yeah.
NASA would understand them, but...
I think I'm the top blogger at Marketing Labs now.
Yeah.
I think actually that's a good point. We should have a league table.
I'm top of the league table.
I'm
How is
gonna
it measured,
I'm
though?
going to do that because that might encourage Josh to step up a bit.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
You
So
listening,
I'm at
Josh?
the top.
If he thinks he's losing.
I'm going for promotion to the Premier League
Let's do it
Yes,
then.
we could have a Premier League. What's the one down from that?
Championship.
Championship,
That's where Tom is at the moment.
And what's the one down from that?
League One,
Right. Where's Sheffield United?
Championship.
Championship.
Because they got bumped off.
Yeah.
They
Or
call
bumped
it
down.
relegated. They call
Relegated.
it.
That's the one.
Anyway, going off topic, bringing us back to focus. Have we got any other benefits of content repurposing?
Another really great one is being able to use the same content across lots of different platforms, which gives you an opportunity to reach more people. Because if somebody doesn't read your blog post, but they do follow you on social media, they have an opportunity to see it there. So you're not confining it to one space, one area, one type of reader.
It comes back to the different channels, what we were saying in the previous blog. Where does your audience hang out? You might have different audience channels.
And they might need slightly different content angles.
Yeah.
So when you repurpose, you can get the same point across, but just in slightly different ways.
Yeah, and people consume content differently and prefer to do that. So somebody might watch a video but not want to read 1,500 words, or they might actually prefer to listen to a podcast while they're at the gym, but wouldn't see you on social media and prefer to take their, consume their information that way.
Interesting.
Do you want another one?
Have you got one?
Yeah.
You've probably got like 10, haven't you?
I've got a few.
Hundreds.
But, yeah. I think the main one really is expanding the lifespan of your content as well, though. So you can turn something into, once you start reusing it, you can turn it into something that will last a lot longer. So it comes back to the efficiency a tiny bit because you're doing it once and using it multiple times, but actually it expands how long you can continue using it for.
Nice.
Gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
That's a good point, actually, because there is no time limit to it either. So if you've written something that did really, really well a couple of years ago, you can go back to it and you can, then 2 years on, take it and carve it up and, make social posts from it. There's no time limit if you've done something that's evergreen on when you can use it.
Have you got any benefits, Emma?
Well, yeah, they said them.
That's the easiest way to summarise it.
I was going to come back and just go back to the using it in different ways. So, going what Mel said about if you wrote something like a year or two ago, but it's still relevant, but video is really big at the moment, you could easily turn it into a script to do a video with. So, I'd work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's a good shout, to be fair. I wouldn't know how to go about a written blog post into a video. You'd probably have to edit it properly and structure it. Think about the structure.
I think you could do it quite easily with AI.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think you could take the highlights, get AI to create a bit of a script.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be completely voiceless and you didn't want to be in the video from a voice perspective or even a video perspective, like your face, you could probably even use AI to read out the script and use AI to create some nice images for backgrounds. You could do that quite easily, I think.
That's not a bad shout, to be fair.
Yeah.
Interesting. What types of content do we think are most suitable for repurposing? But do you think social shares and things like that?
Social gets the main benefit, doesn't it? I think social. Yeah. But you could turn blog posts into social posts. You could turn blog posts into videos. That's always a good one as well. But then videos are great on social. I think there's so many things you could repurpose.
Other than, what about like white papers and things like that? I mean, we're talking specifically about blogs, but how would you take a white paper perspective, for example, or a guide into a post, for example? How would you approach that?
A guide could easily be a video, couldn't it?
Yeah.
A white paper could easily be an infographic where you take in stats or the output of the white paper into something that's more visual. One thing, so we repurpose this podcast. We turn this podcast, we take the transcript and we put it on the page, and then we've got a page of the content we're talking about, which is great for SEO. So not only is it good for readers of our website because they can either listen or read it, but it's fantastic for search and performance of our website. So that's repurposing as well, really.
I guess then coming back to AI, you can use that transcript to to ask it to come up with the key points, which then could come into a social post. Multiple social posts. But
you can do it the other way around as well. So if you've done a webinar, you could turn that into a blog post really easily. And again, that would be great for social. So yeah, I think it does depend on where your audience hangs out. We always say this, but it's obviously super important. But if you can repurpose something you already have to capture the audience, knowing the channel they hang out on, if you can repurpose it and push it towards the channels where you know your audiences are hanging out, then it just makes perfect sense to do it that way around.
We've talked about like blogs and how we can turn them into multiple social posts, but what about something that is already visual, like an infographic? What would we do with that? You could make that like not a reel, but like a carousel or something. Yeah,
or slides, or you could even do a deck from that. I mean, you can people go around to the slideshare.com and websites like that where people go looking for particular topics. So you could turn that into a deck quite easily.
I guess another point is like an example, should I say, is our podcast. We've changed it and we're doing video format now just by simply adding like the video visuals to it. It's not like any well, I say any extra work. It's not much extra work because we're already doing the pod. So yeah, it's a great way to repurpose that content and get it on YouTube and do shorts for Instagram.
Shorts are actually a perfect example of our pod.
Yeah.
We sort of take key points of what we discuss in the main blabs and then dissect them into shorts.
Yeah, it's just another form of repurposing, isn't it? And when it comes to, if you can repurpose visual content's 20 times more likely to be shared or to be engaged with. So taking something that's audio, like we have with the podcast, which is great in itself, in its own channel, but if we can repurpose that for video, it's just going to encourage more engagement.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen a decent infographic actually online. I used to do them all the time, but I hadn't done
Seems
them
to
in a
have
while.
slowed down infographics.
Yeah.
I think they
I've
might
seen
have had
a
their
few.
day.
I think they're coming back.
Maybe. Yeah. They need to come back. I like a good infographic.
I love an infographic.
Yeah.
I saw one on LinkedIn was explaining how to make a good infographic, and I think people have got lost into, I guess this is really relevant, is if you're taking a white paper or something that's quite a beefy amount of writing, there's an art to making like carousels and infographics. Like, you don't want to overwhelm people. The whole point of it is it's short, snappy information that people can read and take in and digest, so it's repurposing it into an easier way to digest.
Yeah, into an easier format. Yeah.
I definitely digest infographics and pictures.
You
better.
do, don't you? That's how you consume information, isn't it?
Videos, pictures.
You hate
colours.
it when I write words, don't you?
Oh, I don't mind it. I like writing words, but I don't like reading them. You love reading, don't you?
I would prefer to read over anything else. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
Although I listen to podcasts when I go to sleep, so that's how I consume podcasts, is at bedtime.
Do you listen to the Marketing Blabs podcast to go to sleep?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's how boring we are.
My best man used it in his speech, saying if anyone needs to go to sleep, listen to Tom's podcast. Cheers. Anyway.
Nice.
Does he listen to it?
He obviously has.
What's his name?
One episode.
Callum.
Fuck you, Callum.
Can we keep that in?
Yeah, 100%. All right. So what about, I guess it's quite a generic question, but what about like measuring the success of your content repurposing? First of all, how often would you come back if you've posted a blog and then 3 weeks later you repurpose it? Is that too soon? Or how do you measure when is good to repurpose and when isn't, I guess?
I think it depends on the platform that you're using, because obviously they all have different metrics that go with them. So obviously if you're posting something on social media, the metrics are going to be far different from if you're posting something on your own website, a blog post, for example. So you need to decide, depending on where the content is and what format of the content you've used. But I don't think I would do that in the course of measuring everything else that you've done on that platform. I wouldn't pull it out as being indifferent from what you do routinely. It just comes in and amongst that.
I think as well, like if we use blog posts as an example, just because it's a great point. It's a nice place to start from to create, I guess, various different posts from. But you could, in theory, do that when you publish your blog post as well. You could say, okay, well, I know I've got 5 social posts here, so I can schedule them. But also, as Mel said, I think it's probably good to, when you're analysing your data, you're looking at engagement on social and you're looking at what's resonated with your audience, comments, those kind of things. When you're analysing your social performance, you can just see which posts resonated the most and you can do more of that.
Yeah, I guess the only exception to that is if you're waiting to see if something performs well before you use it for repurposing, which again, obviously, you'll not get immediate feedback on something you've posted on the website, but on social media, you'll know pretty quickly whether it's done well or not. And obviously, there are other examples within that. But if you're waiting to see if it does well before you repurpose, obviously, give it a while and then make a decision. And also, if you're running a campaign and your repurposing efforts are part of meeting a specific objective. So, for example, you're creating a cluster of content on a topic, repurposing content across lots of different platforms, then you might then choose to measure that against the objective as one piece of discrete work.
Mm. Does it have to be a blog post? I know you said about if you've got a blog post that you wrote 2 years ago as an example and you come back to it. Is there a time limit on that? Like, could you come back to a blog that you wrote 10 years ago?
Depends on the content, doesn't it? If it's evergreen and still relevant, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Especially if it's things change, don't it? It's like Emma was saying a minute ago, or infographics coming back as a tactic, I guess. And if they are, then potentially it's relevant again. So things come in and out of fashion, so to speak. People engage with things in cycles, don't they?
And in any case, I think you should be going back to your content anyway to update it. So if you've got something that worked really well and it's 10 years old, why haven't you gone back to it, updated it and sort of revived it and brought it back to the fore? Because you should be doing that routinely anyway as part of your content strategy.
That's another good point, isn't it, to be fair, is that don't just leave your content forever to fester. You
Don't
can
leave
always
it on the shelf,
you can always come back to it and improve it.
It's similar to the conversation we have about websites, isn't it? You know, one of our very first podcasts was talking about how the mentality of going through the process of building a new website is let's get it perfect. Let's click that launch button and then it's done and forgotten about and it's there. And we were saying, actually, that's probably one of the worst things you could do. Firstly, you don't actually even necessarily have to launch it when it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You should always be working on it. But it's a similar thing. Like once it's like ticked and done, it's forgotten about. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes people make with content is it should always be revisited, really.
Yeah, it's like having an Aston Martin in your garage and not putting any fuel in it to drive it.
Yeah, not servicing it. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it is.
Nice. Would you say that going back to an old post is classed as repurposing, or is that just optimizing?
Going back to it, I think, is optimizing rather than repurposing.
Unless you change it enough that you're changing its purpose.
Yeah.
You might have it, for example, we did repurpose one post when we relaunched the website, I think, a couple of years ago. There was one about WordPress and Shopify. I think it was that. And it was a few years old and some of the things it was saying actually weren't accurate anymore. So
was it something that the CMS had changed, what wasn't relevant anymore?
Yeah,
as an update to the CMS or something?
My memory on this is I can't remember fully, to be honest, but I think we might have even added in a third CMS. So we did that. So we repurposed it slightly because we're adding a third CMS. And
so you're doing sort of a bit of both.
Yeah, you could argue that's repurposing, but generally I agree with Mel. That's mostly just optimizing, isn't it?
One thing that probably does fall under repurposing, though, is sort of augmentation. So if you've got lots of blog posts that are on the same topic and you could plausibly put them together to create a bigger, fuller guide on a topic, that in itself, I guess, is repurposing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you could take 3, 4, 5 of them and create something, like a real long form piece of content that becomes a sort of almost an ebook, perhaps, if it's long enough. And that I would say is a repurposing tactic.
I was just about to say your book.
Plug. I mean, there's shameless plug there, but also I'm also working on that other book, which is a compendium of e-commerce content. Well, it's 15 posts that are very specific to e-commerce. So it's a collection of guides, and that is absolutely repurposing because it's already produced. It's there. It just needs, again, slightly bringing up to date, but putting into one book.
Yeah, I like that word though, compendium.
Compendium. I think a compendium means a collection of articles.
Nice.
Might be wrong.
It's a good word.
I like that.
I do. Right. So, what about some challenges that people might face when it comes to repurposing content?
I think a big issue is like keeping the quality there by repurposing, because obviously if you've got a blog post, I'm going back to blog posts, we like blogs, it's going to probably start affecting your SEO if you like copy the content and then repost it. Like, so there has got to be some work to be done when you're repurposing. You can't just go copy, paste, off you go. And I think it's something like 56% of marketers struggle with quality when repurposing their content. So it is a big issue, and you've got to make sure that you're doing it right to make sure it's worth your time going back to it.
Yeah, because, it's as Emma said, sometimes you're in a situation where you could potentially dilute the meaning of it if you're not actually just putting a bit more emphasis on making it right. You can't just take it and in outside of context, it might not fully work. So you do need to put a bit of effort into it.
Another is audience fatigue. So it's great to be able to create lots and lots of different bits of content from one. But if you use them all at once, people are going to get pretty sick of seeing it. So plan them in. So, use, a couple a week and make them last. Because otherwise, I think you'll turn people off.
Yeah. Not a bad shout.
That's a really good point. It's so easy for people to get pissed off online.
Yeah.
You will lose followers if you just throw in the same old stuff at them all the time, and they lose value in it.
What about like time pressures from like marketers? Do you think they're so focused on creating new content all the time that they forget to repurpose it?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of pressures on in-house marketers to make sure that they're always producing new stuff. It's like churn, constantly like, new posts all the time. But I think in reality that it probably makes so much more sense at least having some of your time focused on going back through old stuff, repurposing and re-optimizing as well, potentially. I know that's not necessarily the purpose of this podcast, but there's a lot of value in that. And I think a lot of marketers do struggle to find the time to go back to old stuff and maybe repurpose it.
Nice. Thank you, everybody, for being on my pod. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, super episode.
Thanks, Emma.
You're welcome.
Your second pod, done and dusted.
Yeah, getting there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Enjoying
Smoking them.
Getting used to it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's slightly weird, but the more I do it, it's becoming a bit more normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like a conversation after you've done a few.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's okay. I don't know what to say. I'm always happy to have you on my podcast, Mel.
Of course, that's how you ended it.
Cheers, everybody.
Yep.
Wave to your cameras.
Thank you. Bye.
And that's all for today's episode on the art of content repurposing. We hope you learned some valuable strategies for breathing new life into your existing content. Remember, repurposing is all about creativity, flexibility, and a willingness to experiment. By applying these tactics, you can maximize your digital efforts, reduce waste, and create a more efficient content marketing machine. Thanks to the ML team for sharing their expertise with us today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Marketing Blabs. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We love hearing from our listeners. Goodbye.